Hello boys and girls, I hope you've brushed your teeth, you've washed your face, and you're ready for your story. Tonight's story is going to be Marooned. Where we last left off, little Ted and Andrex had managed to make their way to Candytopia, but they had landed in a different place to where they did land in the first place, when they first went to Candytopia. So they were in a bit of a pickle. "What do we do? Woof woof," said Andrex. Little Ted thought long and hard, and then he had an idea. "Maybe we can get on the boat and go see if we can sail back to Doggyville," he said. But Andrex thought that wasn't a very good idea, because there was K9 Vid-19 in Doggyville, and there was quarantine in Doggyville. So he decided that was not a very good idea. Then Andrex thought long and hard, and then he had an idea. "Woof woof! Why don't we go to my grandmother's house?" said Andrex. Little Ted thought about it, and he decided that was a good idea. So they got back on the boat, they hoisted up the sails, they turned on the engine, and off they went. Little Ted and Andrex decided that when they got to Andrex's grandmother's house, they were going to make a cake. "What kind of cake should we make?" said Andrex. Little Ted thought they should make a cake in the shape of a boat. But Andrex thought they should make a cake in the shape of a... you wouldn't want to know. Actually, he thought they should make a cake in the shape of a car. So they argued, and they argued, until they didn't realize that they were sailing right into a storm. "Help!" cried Andrex. "Woof!" "Help!" cried little Ted. And so they accidentally sailed into the storm. And then, when they woke up, they were on an island. There was no water. Actually, there was water everywhere. There was water everywhere, all around them, and they were stuck on a sandy beach with palm trees and coconuts and bananas. And there was a big dense jungle, but they didn't fancy going in there. "We're stuck," said little Ted. Andrex agreed. "Woof woof." So now they were stuck on the island. "What do we do?" said little Ted. "I don't know," said Andrex. "Woof. Why don't we just play some video games to keep our minds off it?" So they loaded up their Xbox, or was it a PS4? They loaded up their games console, and they played some more Terraria. And they killed the Moon Lord. But by then, the sun was going down, and Andrex said, "We need to make a shelter." Little Ted said, "Why?" "We have the boat." And then Andrex pointed out that the boat was dead. It had been smashed to pieces on the rocks. "Oh," said little Ted. So they tried to make a shelter. They shook the trees until some leaves fell down. They went to the edge of the big, thick jungle and grabbed some sticks. They balanced on each other's shoulders to get some coconuts. And by the time night fell, they had made a cozy little shelter that was actually just 2 leaves propped up by sticks with leaves on the floor for beds. And so they curled up on their leaf beds and they slept. The next day, they were hungry, so they ate the coconuts. And then Andrex said, "We need to get off this island." Woof! Little Ted heartily agreed. So they went and salvaged what they could from the boat and set off building another boat. Luckily, most of their engineering and maintenance tools had survived the crash. So they hammered, and they welded, and they slept, and they played Terraria, which wasn't really beneficial to building the boat. And they gathered, and they ate, and then by the end of the day, they had managed to erect a boat. "We need a new name for this boat," said Andrex. "Why don't we call it the Radioactive Eagle?" Little Ted didn't think that was a good name. "Why don't we call it the Taiwanese Grape?" Little Andrex didn't think that was a good idea. Woof! Eventually, Andrex said, "Why don't we call it the Boat version 2? Woof! Little Ted thought that was an amazing name. So they clambered into the Boat version 2. They got all of their supplies together. They shook a few more trees to get some coconuts and some bananas, and then off they went again. So they sailed for many days and many nights, and eventually, when all they had left to eat or drink was one coconut and one banana, they landed on the other side of Doggy Island, which is where Doggyville is. And Doggyville was on the other side of the island. So Little Ted decided that they should just stay in the Boat version 2. But Andrex disagreed. He said that they have to go and get stuff. Supplies, that is. And Little Ted disagreed. And so they argued, and they argued, and they argued until they were shouting so loud that the police came. Wee, wee, wee. Andrex looked at the police and said, he didn't say anything. So then Andrex and Little Ted were taken to the police station and they were asked some questions, and when they had answered all the questions, they were let go. And so they had to go back to their house, which was still smoking because the oven blew up. Little Ted said, "Oh well, why don't we make the best of this?" Andrex agreed. Woof! So they got out their hammers and their wrenches and their soldering tools, and then they fixed up the house. And by this point they were both extremely tired. So they lay down on their actual beds and they went to sleep. Okay, boys and girls, that was the end of the story. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!